In this video I'm going to be finding out 12, 16 or 20 megapixels. Does it really make such a big difference on Micro Four Thirds? Well, join me and find out. Roll titles. Hi YouTube, Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy, on a rather chilly but clean day here in January, and I'm out at Lanercost Priory, which you've seen me out a couple of times. I'll stick a link to a video about Lanercost above. Beautiful place, a ruined priory just a few miles away from where I live. And I was asked on the comments a little while ago by somebody to do a comparison between 16 and 20 megapixel sensors on these cameras. And I thought it was a good idea, but I thought, well, since I'm throwing that in the pot, why not go all the way and bring in a 12 megapixel sensor as well now, since I have one. So what have I used? Well, I'll just reach across. Got them on a nice wall at the side here. I've brought for the 20 megapixel sensor my EM1 Mark II. Great camera. Top range at the time, so it was the best of the cameras that you could get at the time from the Olympus anyway. And what I've done, I've used the 17mm lens on this. I've done all the shooting on all the cameras at f4. I've set the ISO to ISO 400 on them all, so that you got comparison there. Left it on aperture priority, and I've let them sort themselves out insofar as the shutter speed, because the light conditions do vary slightly, and I tried to get as much the same as possible. And what I did is I literally took the lens off one, put on the next one, took the shot, put on the next one, took the shot. So I tried to get them as close in time together as possible as well. So that was my 20 megapixel camera. For my 16, I've got this little, it's older, well, it's farther if you like, the one before it, the EM1 Mark I, 16 megapixels, but again the top of the range at the time and from the Olympus. So it should be a comparable camera. This came out in 2012, of course, and great camera, top of the range, professional camera at the time, so it should be giving the best results. But also, you'll notice recently, I got my hands on this, the great granddaddy of all the Micro Four Thirds cameras. But of course, this was the top of the range at the time. It was the only camera for the Micro Four Thirds at the time. This is the Lumix G1, and this is 12 megapixels. Now, before I go on too far, there's a few things to note when we're talking about megapixel counts. I'll put that back down again. It's not just the megapixels which makes a difference. Between the G1 coming out in 2008 and the EM1 Mark II, which I think is about 2015, 16, something like that. There was a huge jump in the technology in digital cameras. There really was a massive change. So things like the processors have changed immeasurably. That gave you better ISO performance, and not only at the high end. When you're getting high-end ISO performance, what it usually does is give you better performance at the low end as well. It really cleans up the low end. So as time's gone on, even at ISO 400, there should be differences in them. Whether you can perceive them or not is a different matter, but there are differences because the processors and the sensors themselves are getting better. Now, on the thing of the sensor, they are all the same size, you know, so it is a Micro Four Thirds sensor, but even keeping it the same size and even keeping the same megapixels, between the first of the 20 megapixel cameras which came out, which my Lumix GX8 was the first of the ones from Lumix, between that and the later ones, the sensor technology has improved, the processors have improved, and an awful lot on the camera itself has improved. Now, that's going to give you some differences which your megapixel count isn't going to take into account itself. It never can, because they are external to just a megapixel count. But also remember that megapixel count is doing more than just giving you better resolution. You're also, because your sensor is a set size on all of them, it's the same size physically, dimensions on it, but what you're doing by having the higher megapixel is you're subdividing it into more little units, more little pixels. And that has two effects. One, it gives you better resolution, but the other thing what it does is it changes the actual pixel size. Each individual pixel on a lower megapixel camera is bigger. Now, in theory, that should be an advantage because it's better able to deal with the light hitting it. So it should, in theory, there should be a better dynamic range on the older sensor than the newer ones. But of course, as I say, the technology has improved, and so has the processing power has improved, and therefore you should find that the dynamic range which is being able to get produced from the processor is better on the newer cameras too. So I've taken a few shots. What I've done literally is I've wandered around the priory, taken a few shots and literally tried to keep them as close time-wise together. So I'd take one on one camera, take the lens off, put it on the next one, take the same shot, take the lens off, put on the next one, same shot. And that's what I did all the way around. Very time consuming. It does now take some time to do that actually. But what I've done is I've done that and tried to get them as close as possible, because as I say, the light itself will change as time goes on, but if you can get them close enough, it shouldn't be too much of a difference. Now, I haven't had a look at these yet. I've literally just finished taking the photographs themselves, so I'm going to get myself inside soon and get them on the computer. But what I'll do is I'll put them up onto your screen unedited. So these are literally straight out of the camera. I'm not going to play around with exposure. I'm not going to play around with any other thing on that. So there might be good shots, there might be poor shots, I don't know. It's literally what I saw on the back of the cameras. And the other thing, of course, on the back of these cameras was the viewfinder. There was a noticeable difference between the very early camera, the G1, and the EM1 Mark III, EM1 Mark II. And there was a noticeable difference between the 1 and 2 actually on the Olympuses. So you're getting much better results. You can see an awful lot better in the viewfinder as to what you're getting between the three of them. So we're going to get in, have a look at these photographs, and I'm going to discuss them on there. But the other thing as well before we do is also remember what medium you're going to be showing these pictures on. Most people are using social media now. It's going to go on Instagram or Facebook or something like this YouTube video. And if you're watching this on a TV, for instance, a 4K TV, a 4K TV is effective megapixel size of about 8 megapixel. Now I'm going to be putting this up in 1080p, which is about 2 megapixel. So it doesn't matter what the resolution on these cameras is, if I put a full screen picture up, it's still not going to be as much as the camera is able to produce. And we are very, very happy with what we're seeing on 4K TVs. And most of us are fairly happy with what we're seeing on HD TVs, which is the 1080. So remember that although we're going for fantastic resolution, if we're going to put it up full size on social media, it's probably going to be compress the living daylights out of it, to tell you the truth. And also it depends on the playback device that you're looking at that media on. So you've got to take that into account as well. Do you really need huge megapixel counts if it's only ever going on Facebook, or if it's only ever going on Instagram, or if it's only ever going onto YouTube? That's for you to decide. The big difference, of course, is when you've got high resolution, it means that you can really zoom in. You can crop in considerably more on a high resolution than you can a low one before you start getting any pixelation or when you start getting any softness from it. And it does have an effect on that. So let's have a look at let's go inside, let's have a look at some of the photographs and we'll discuss what the results have been. Come on. Well, warmed up a little bit now, came in from the cold. It was chilly out there. Now it's a lot nicer inside the minute, so I've had a little chance to have a look at the photographs that I've taken, and I'm going to bring them to you now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I'll take you the first photograph first, but then I'll show you a little montage and you can make your mind up on that. But there's a few details that it really is worth reiterating, which I said in the first part of the video. Now first of all, the 12.1 megapixel G1 was the first of the Micro Four Thirds cameras. It really was a bit of a pioneer. The second one that I used, the EM1 Mark I, is a 16 megapixel, and that was the first of the real pro level cameras from Olympus. Fantastic. And also the last one that I'm using is the EM1 Mark II, and that's a 20 megapixel. And it's not just the resolution which is different. If I pick up the G1, it feels plasticky. It really is. It feels almost like a toy in comparison to the other two. But it was a camera of its time. 2008 it came out in. When we get to the EM1 Mark III, we've gone through a huge change in technology and build quality. It really feels a substantial bit of kit, but also, as you'll see in the photographs, there are other changes. We've got much, much better processors, which take out a lot of the noise, as well as improve the image quality. Now, for me, that's a bigger difference from what I've seen in these photos than actual resolution. But let's have a look. Go to the first photo, and we'll see what the score is on it. Well, this was taken on the G1, and this is, they were all taken, before we go any further, they were all taken using the 17mm f1.8 Olympus prime lens, set at f4 for all of these shots, and that's around about the sweet spot where the lens is going to have the least impact on the image quality. The other thing I've done is on all of these photos, I haven't altered them at all. These are straight out of the camera. The only thing I haven't done is just chopped the the 16:9 on a couple just to make it fit on the screen better, but you know, insofar as exposure, contrast, everything else, I've left them purely out the camera. So this is what the metering's decided and what the camera's decided to take the shot. So let's have a look at the G100 first. And you can see in this first shot, a shot of Lanarkos Priory. And we've got quite a substantial part of the Priory in there. There's an awful lot of building there. But let's zoom in. Now, I don't have the ability to go into an accurate figure of what percentage I'm going into. But to say that I'm round about the 300 to 400% crop is a serious amount of crop. And you'll see on this that this surprised me. This is the G1, the 12.1 megapixel camera. And I'm not really seeing pixelation at all. What I am seeing is a real softening of the image and a lot of noise visible on it rather than the full shot. But it's not really pixelation. It's not really those square blocks of pixels you can see. It's just very, very soft. But you can see by the fact that we're looking at an individual stone block here compared to the original shot, this is a serious amount of cropping in. More than you'd normally do. Let's have a look at the same shot done on the EM1 Mark I, the 16 megapixel. And you can first of all see that there's a big difference in the contrast and the colour rendition. It's moved on a huge amount. Now this is down to better sensor, not only in resolution but also insofar as how the sensor's made, the way that the data is taken off the sensor, the quality of the pixels and land areas that you've got, and also the quality of the processor inside, the way that it's dealing with the data which comes off it. And this to me is a major step forward, and you can see that there's been a good few years development between the cameras which produce these two images. And that's noticeable throughout these shots. So on this one we've got the full shot here. Let's again zoom into a similar sort of level and you'll see again there's not really pixelation. We're talking 16 megapixel on this one. There's not really pixelation on this, but again we have a softening of the image. A lot less noise than previous. Now as you go through the photographs, which I'll show you the whole lot shortly that I took, the only one I could really see any pixelation, blocky pixelation, was the EM1 Mark I. And it was only in certain places and at certain crop factors. So it wasn't across the board. And it was mainly where there was data, for instance on the stones where you had a lot of non-contrasty data, it seemed to block it out then. But overall, that was the only time I saw any real pixelation in the way that I think of it, where you can see the blocks of the pixels. Every other sort of cropping did tend to just make it very, very soft and decrease the contrast and increase the noise. So let's have a look at the EM1 Mark II. This is the 20 megapixel shot, and again the full shot here. And zooming in, the zoomed one. And this is showing you the sort of crop that we've got on here. Again, softness, not pixelation, but overall a much better contrast, a much better image and a much better colour rendition than the previous two. So let's take a second to think of what we've just seen there. There is obviously a difference, a big difference between the 12, the 16 and the 20 megapixel, but I don't believe that it's just down to the resolution. Now, we're fed an awful lot of hype by those trying to sell us cameras. Resolution is king. We need huge figures, 40 megapixels, 80 megapixels. And yes, you will get more detail on them. You can crop in further. But to be perfectly honest, the way that I've cropped all these in have been, as we go through the rest of the photos, they're round about the 300 to 400% cropped in. Now my argument on this is very, very simple. If you're having to crop in something 300 or 400%, you're not using the right lens. You're not standing close enough. You're not getting close enough. And if you're having to crop in like that, you're going to use it for one-off shots. But if you need to get that close in, you really need to be looking at the equipment that you're using to make sure that you don't have to crop that much in the first place. And I think that's the key for me. It's using the right equipment. Now, I know that it's expensive to buy long zooms and long telephoto lenses. We all know that. But you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. It just doesn't happen. So if you're having to crop in 300 or 400%, I really think you're pushing the system beyond its limits. And you might find that some of the fantastic high-end cameras with sort of 60, 70, 80 megapixels will do it.
but look what you're paying for insofar as cost, insofar as weight, and insofar as size. And you know, even on those systems, you're paying many thousands for a telephoto lens which will give you the resolution that you want at the long focal lengths. So before I go on, let's go and have a look at some of the photos. But before I do, if you like this channel, give me a big thumbs up if you would. That really will help this video be seen by more and more people. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. And also, if you do get the chance, leave me a comment below on what you're going to see in a few moments. I really do appreciate what you have to say to me. I mean, this whole subject came up because of a comment, and I'm trying to reply to a viewer's comment on this as to resolution and the differences between the two. So I do read your comments. I do enjoy reading your comments. Don't always agree with them, but that's the beauty of leaving the comments. We can discuss and we can also see what's happening. So leave a comment below. But until then, I'm going to show all the photographs. We're going to have the G1, the G1 zoomed in, EM1 Mark 1, EM1 Mark 1 zoomed in, EM1 Mark 2, and EM1 Mark 2 zoomed in, and there's another 8 sets of photographs to see. So let's have a look at those and see what we can make out of them. Well, I hope you found that useful, because I think it sort of highlights the differences that we have. I don't really see pixelation. I see a lot of softness and a lot of noise coming in. What about you? Let me know in the comments below, because again, I'm interested to see what you saw from it. But bear in mind something. This video is being made in 1080p, which is equivalent to about 2 megapixels. If I'd shot the whole thing in 4K, that would have been about 8 megapixels, so considerably less resolution than even the lowest resolution from the 12.1 megapixel Lumix. So to me, having high resolution is mainly giving you the ability to crop in and still keep quality, and that's an important part of it for me. But putting them onto social media platforms is almost immediately going to degrade it. So when you're looking at the photographs, and by the way, the photographs you'll be able to find on my Patreon channel, and there's a link below which will take you to them. You don't have to be a member to get them. You can see the JPEGs that I shot, and you can have a look at them and play around with them and see what it is, what you think of them. But as I say, all of those photographs have no post-production on. The only thing I've cropped them down is to 16:9, so they fit in the video format for this, but they've just been cropped down a little bit, but they haven't been processed in any other way. There's been no contrast change or exposure change or any colour balance. They literally come out as how the camera's seen them. So have a look at those if you want to. You're more than welcome to. But do let me know what you think on this. So my conclusions. Well, my conclusions are simple. Yes, newer cameras with a higher megapixel will give you better quality. But invariably, the quality doesn't just come from the megapixels. It's coming from the whole camera system and the improvements which have been done since the previous models. And I think that's what I'm buying into. Yes, something like an OM1 is going to give you far better quality than the EM1 Mark 1, because everything on that has been upgraded, everything has been improved, and there's newer technology being used and newer principles employed. Am I won over by the idea of having mega high megapixels? No, I'm not. I saw nothing but a softening. I didn't see the pixelation. And if we think about it, going back to the earliest days of digital photography, when we had those small compact cameras, we started off with, say, 2 megapixel cameras. We really thought we were good when it went up to 5. And I remember seeing all the things about 5 megapixel cameras, fantastic resolution. And we didn't see all those pixelations on them when it was put on social media. Now, if you're printing, it may be a bit different. If you're printing large prints, it may be a big difference. But how many of you people out there are printing large prints regularly? I know I don't anymore. I've done them and I've had some really successful results from 16 megapixel sensors. But I rarely do it, and I've rarely had a problem. And even then, I very rarely pixel peep. If I've got a decent sized print, I'll be standing back from it. And that, again, is the difference on these. But as I said a few moments ago, I think if you are having to crop in more than 100%, and 100% I think is perfectly acceptable on all of these sensors, but if you're having to crop in more than 100%, I think you've got the wrong lens and the wrong equipment for what you're wanting to shoot. Either that, or you're standing far too far away and you need to think about moving. Let me know what you think. Before I finish, a big thank you to all my patrons on my Patreon channel. Their names are here. Wonderful. Great to see your support, and I really do appreciate that support because it does keep the channel going with the donations on that. If you want to become a patron, there is a link here to my Patreon channel. 3 different levels, 3 different prices, and you can get in and you can see all sorts of things like videos. We have a monthly video which I put out which YouTube doesn't see for at least a fortnight, so you get first dibs on some of the videos. And also, if you do just want to do a one-off support of the channel, that's equally important to me. Everything helps. I say it's buy a coffee, but it goes to help keep the channel going. There's a PayPal link there, and anything that you donate is really, really appreciated. But until the next time, don't forget to leave your comments. I shall see you around. Keep on taking your camera out, irrespective of what resolution it is that uses. Keep on having fun with your photography. Till next time, bye-bye.